to Bad Ideas, the show where we look at misfires, mistakes, and miscalculations from all throughout history.
I'm Tony Southcott.
And I'm Albert Berg. Tony is delivering our bad idea to us this week. Tony, what do you got?
This week we're going to be talking about the game show Press Your Luck and one very, very ambitious contestant that was on there.
Okay, haven't heard of this one. From back in the day, I take it?
Yeah, this is back in 1983. A new game show called Press Your Luck hit TVs all across America. It was a simple premise: answer trivia to get spins, use your spins to get money, bonus spins, or prizes. You also had a dreaded whammy square, which would reset you all the way back to zero. It's like a bankrupt thing in Wheel of Fortune.
I was about to say, sounds like Bankrupt and Wheel of Fortune. You got there before me, Tony.
And it's one of those shows where anytime somebody hits the whammy, it's full-on just sadness and disappointment and everything you would expect from losing upwards of $10,000 for some of the people that were on here.
I bet there's like some sad music that plays, like a wah, 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 or something.
There's a little animation that pops up of these little monsters called whammies that steal your money.
Oh, even better. Well, see, in 1980 something, I would assume they'd actually have like little guys in suits come out. I'm kind of disappointed they had animation.
Yeah, it was all animated and everything, just like all high-tech and keyed out and all that stuff.
I bet they had computers somewhere on the set, Tony.
I mean,
something was operated with computers. It was 1980 something.
Yeah, people were being keyed
computers
out. Yeah, full-on computers or green type. Anyway, now all this probably sounds like a standard game show. You look back and see how bad of an idea the entire 80s were in relation to fashion, music, art, discourse, Broncos Super Bowls, muscle cars, and generally everything except for horror movies. It's like a time machine
Tony has
of
managed
suck.
to get a little editorializing in here.
But anyway, back to Press Your Luck. On the board in glowing lights, you had cash denominations, prizes, and little yellow whammy squares. The lights would flash in seemingly random patterns over selected squares, and you would scream stop as well as hit a button to get it to hit those squares.
You had to do both?
Oh, that was sort of a tradition. I don't think you technically had to yell stop, but everybody seemed to like hit it and yell stop at the same time. So they were probably
It's like when you go on Wheel of Fortune, like the rules don't say you have to yell big money, big money, big money, big money. But if you don't, they won't let you on the show.
Like if you listen, people say no whammies. That's actually related to this show whenever they're spinning for money. Like that's something that I didn't realize until I was researching this.
I did not realize that either. That's awesome.
Sitting in his living room, a man named Michael Larson wondered if he could make some quick cash from game shows. What started out as an idle curiosity turned into an obsession. Now, before we get any further, we should say that Michael Larson was an odd man. He was often described as lazy and opportunistic. Even his own brother said he didn't understand the value of good, hard, honest work.
That sounds like a guy who's done a lot of good, hard, honest work and didn't get as far as his brother did.
Probably.
Trying to cheat a game show.
This sort of surprised me to see, since he would go to such lengths to understand a game like this. He seemed to be a very smart man with little drive for the mundane. Between working as an ice cream man or an air conditioning repairman, he was always looking for the next big quick cash scheme. One day he decided that the best way to make some cash was by scanning hard for faults in game shows. His girlfriend at the time said he had an entire wall of 25-inch televisions stacked one on top of another. He'd just sit there watching, waiting for his moment.
Wait, this guy can't be too hard off if he's able to buy an entire wall of 25-inch televisions.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. Like, he's probably done a lot of things that actually did make him some money, but I couldn't find a whole lot on him before the game show.
This is like Jeff Bezos starting Amazon in his garage, like after his dad loaned him $500,000.
After watching shows like The Price is Right or Wheel of Fortune, he deemed them to be uncheatable and moved on. When Press Your Luck debuted in 1983, Larson began to record the episodes and watch them over and over again, sometimes for 18 hours at a time.
Okay, couple things I would bring up here. First off, this is very early in the era of being able to record episodes of TV.
Yeah, VCRs weren't a thing until, like, I think the late 70s, like, early 80s.
Yeah, Betamax was there too. I assume you don't have information on what format he used, and I don't care. But the other thing that really strikes me is, and you already kind of said this is very obsessive behavior.
Very much so. It took him 6 months before the pattern was really down in his mind. he started to see it, and he would use his the VCR remote to start practicing, where he would line these up and hit pause and make sure that he was always hitting the spot on the board that he wanted to. Using math, he was able to determine that there were 5 patterns, which 5 patterns is a fair amount, but if you're really going to get people, you've got to go a lot further than that.
Yeah, you don't have to have true randomness to fool a human, but if there's only 5 choices, you're probably going to somebody's going to find the pattern.
Yeah, especially because the denominations, while they were spinning around the board, things would change between like the cash denominations, the prizes, and all that. And he found that 8 of the 18 boards never had whammies on them, so he never even had to worry about like a whammy popping up on every single one. So he was able to get 8 out of 18 as safe landing spots. Now, this is once again odd to me. A man willing to spend hours and hours every day drilling and watching game shows but is unable to work a normal job. I feel like he could have found something interesting to really sink his teeth into, some sort of business where he was able to use these sorts of skills. So it's just a little odd.
No, man, he's above that. He wants to get inside the system, break out of it. I don't. He's trying to do something else.
Yeah.
Plus, you did say he worked as an air conditioner repairman and some other stuff. He did have jobs.
Yeah, he just
right?
never stayed with them for very long.
Yeah, I assume during this point he must have been, mooching off of his girlfriend or wife or whoever? Or living in his mom's basement?
It sounded like during this time he was an ice cream truck driver, so I'm sure he wasn't making a ton, but it might have been enough. Using the last of his savings, Michael Larson flew to Los Angeles to audition to be on the show. One of the contest supervisors actually rejected Larson, feeling that he couldn't trust the man's motives and that something was off about him. Producer Bill Carruthers overruled the supervisor and would allow Michael Larson on the show.
I'm surprised. Did you get to actually watch any footage of this show at all?
Oh, yeah. I got to watch a bunch. You can watch the entire thing on YouTube, actually.
Okay. A question that I have here is, was it a Jeopardy-style show where you're going to be, very stoic and focused and serious? Or are we talking about a...
Very much not. You get
Wheel of Fortune-style personality-driven show?
It's personality-driven where you actually kind of have to go like The Price is Right and do an audition beforehand.
So this guy not only is focused enough to sit there watching televisions for 18 hours a day, practicing with a remote, but he's also apparently able to function at a high enough social level where he can get on. See, this is not my vision of this guy. It seems to me like he would be very kind of just quiet and
imagine
stilted.
A portly bearded guy with a giant smile who is super excited by everything.
Not what I was imagining. I was somewhere in the autism spectrum, Tony, and
he might still be on there. He might have just been excited because everything was working correctly. But we'll get to that in a minute. While waiting in the green room, Larson met Ed Long, a Baptist minister from California, booked for the 3rd episode of the recording session. They struck up a conversation. Long recalled that Larson asked how many times he had seen the show. When Long replied that he'd seen it only once, Larson responded by looking at him as though he were from another planet. Larson told Long, "I really hope that we don't have to play each other," before leaving the green room. But they would in fact face off, as Long won his match and won $11,000 on the previous episode and was invited back to be on the episode with Larson. The two men competed against Janie Leitris, a dental assistant, in the next episode. Michael Larson walked onto the stage for Press Your Luck. His excitement was visible as he overcheered and applauded the smallest things. In his haste, he even started guessing too quickly on the trivia questions, missing out on questions about nickels and various other things that he actually knew the answer to, but he had a little bit of jitters right off the bat. During the first round, it looked like he would be in last place, but he only needed a couple of spins for his plan to work. He had 2, the woman next to him had 10, and looked like she was going to be the clear winner. Then came the first turn to spin. He waited and waited and waited, and slammed the buzzer down, and excitedly shouted, and then realized that he had hit a whammy. His first attempt was a flop. The expression on his face was not sad, however. He actually smiles and claps and moves on. Some have thought that this might have been an attempt to show he actually could lose, but because it was the very beginning, he wasn't staking any money on that. And
okay,
I still am not sure if this was a misstep due to nerves or if he was getting his timing right and figuring out how the buzzer worked. But the next 2 spins he had, he would do the exact same square, bringing in $1,250 with each spin. He would still be in last place after round 1. Round 2, however, is whenever things started to get real weird. He did a lot better on the trivia and stacked up 7 spins. He started to work his magic. Spin 1 was for $4,000 and a bonus spin, $5,000 and a free spin. And he continues. 6 spins in and he hasn't lost a single of his original 7 spins. The host comments on this and Michael states, "Oh, I'd never lose a spin." During the early part of the round, he would win a sailboat, a trip to Kauai, and would keep pressing on. Once he busted the $36,000 mark, the episode needed to end because of time constraints. A green-screened host, Peter Tomarken, came onto the set and said that the episode would be continued later. Larson had already crushed the single-session record on Press Your Luck and would continue his domination.
Now, this is, I assume, at this point, sort of a Ken Jennings moment. I remember I was watching Jeopardy with my parents while that was happening, and that was, like, every night you had to tune in and see if this guy was going to keep going.
Yeah, the only problem with
just
that...
on fire.
Yeah, the only problem with that is that the producers didn't really appreciate what was happening. I'm sure the Ken Jennings thing brought in more money for them in ratings than it cost them. This was about to turn pretty far south for them.
All right.
When he passed 40,000, 50,000, and more, the host began to tell Larson that he needed to stop before he hit a whammy and lost it all. Michael Larson did not stop. He didn't even show any pretense of this not being a con at this point. Every time he stopped, he got a free spin, massive cash, and basked in the glory of the camera. He would react and cheer before it was even showing on the screen whether or not he'd hit the right square. He had gotten the timing down that much.
Do you think he's taunting them at this point?
Maybe a little bit.
He knows they know, and he's just like, y'all can't do anything about it. The rules don't say you can. I'm here on your game show. What are you going to do?
And that's actually something that they would talk about. Like, Michael Brockman was head of daytime programming at CBS at the time. He got a call and started to watch. He said something was very wrong. Here was a guy from nowhere, and he was hitting the bonus box every time. It was bedlam. I can tell you, we couldn't stop this guy. He kept going around the board and hitting the box. And the producers, at right around the $20,000 mark, is whenever they realized that he was cheating, or what they considered to be cheating. But really, that's like saying that someone who's really good at counting cards or is able to pick up on tells in poker is cheating just because he knows how the game works. And that's their fault. That's totally not Michael Larson's fault.
Yep, he put the work in.
Yep. It should be surprising to no one that this second episode would give Press Your Luck its highest ratings ever. Which, you were talking about the Ken Jennings effect earlier. Like, whenever people heard about how good he was the first time, coming back a week later and knowing that it was just going to be chaos, of course they tuned in for that.
Yeah, and the thing about this, too, is that on Jeopardy, it's purely based on your knowledge of the trivia, right? This one was supposed to have some level of randomness that even if you were super smart, you could still lose. The fact that this guy's gaming the system, I think, takes it even to another level.
Yeah, because Ken Jennings couldn't get all the answers in there, although it did sound like one woman beat him and they decided to just not air that episode. I was reading about that not too long ago. So his streak isn't entirely entirely true, but he was giving them such good ratings that they just kind of let it slide. Larson would spin 46 times before hitting $102,851 before he just decided to stop and pass the spin off to the Baptist minister we talked about earlier. Ed immediately hit a whammy and lost the $4,000 that he was holding on to. The host claimed that he knew that was overdue. So this guy's been
sitting here... Sorry, I didn't hear what you... I want to give you a chance to say that, but... So this Baptist minister guy has been sitting here for how long watching this guy just play this game show like a fiddle?
I think it's about 30 minutes at that point. And both this guy and the girl on the other side are just exasperated. Every time he hits something big, they just kind of look at each other and shake their heads. There's times where they're clapping along with it. You can tell they're kind of into how crazy it is. They know that he's gaming the system. But it's got to be fascinating to be that close to it.
Okay.
Janie then would spin for a while, making a little under $10,000 and passed it back to Larson. The look on her face said it all. She wanted to see him lose everything. Now the pressure had to be maddening at this point, but Larson kept his composure and would finish the episode with $110,237. Adjusted for inflation, that is about $260,000 in cash today. It was by far the largest cash amount given for a game show, and it would be a record that would stand for quite a while.
So what was the fallout of this? Did they survive as a show? I mean, That sounds like a lot of money, but it doesn't sound like break the show money.
No, it didn't break the show. Like, the show would go on to have middling ratings for a while after this. They upped it to 32 patterns, so it was just too much for a normal person to be able to do. Like, you might find some crazy person out there that would be able to get that pattern down, but 32 just takes a while to identify which pattern it's going to be.
I bet they would also be really trusting of those spider senses that told them not to put this guy on the show after this point.
Yeah.
Like, anybody that seemed remotely like they knew what they were doing would just be like, nope, you're out. Sorry.
I also feel like there could be a way to rig it so that, like, if somebody's going crazy like that, they just have, like, one pattern that they put up that always hits a whammy. Like, there could be something
or
like that. Like, I don't think that they ever had to implement anything like that. It didn't say. But after that point, the show did last for a while afterwards.
Did they pay up?
At first, CBS refused to pay Larson, considering him a cheater. However, Brockman and the producers could not find a clause in the game's rules with which to disqualify him, largely due to the board had been constructed with these patterns from the beginning of the series, and the network was forced to comply.
I always wonder what kind of legal binding effect those rules have. Like, even if he wasn't cheating, like, a casino can kick you out for counting cards. I guess they can't take your money away that you have won.
Yeah, they can't just walk up and take the stack in front of you. They just cash you out and tell you to never come back. And he kind of had that happen. At the end of the episode, the CEO of CBS actually called and had the host relay a message that he thanked Michael Larson for retiring. And basically, it was a very nice way of telling him not to let the door hit him on the way out.
To be fair, he probably could have gone for longer.
Oh, yeah. Like, they only stopped it because it got to the end of the second episode's recording length. And I think that they also, if you are really good at that, there's still a chance you're going to hit a whammy just because you're getting tired. It takes a lot of focus to recognize these patterns. One slip up and it could have cost him everything. So he was probably pretty good to just stop at that point.
I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but what happens to Michael Larson after this? What does he go on to do after winning Press Your Luck?
Things got a little shaky after that point. Like, he would blaze through much of the money within 2 years and went on to be a manager at his local Walmart. He would try to win several other competitions, one of which involved matching serial numbers on dollar bills. Like, it was a $30,000 thing that his local radio show was putting on where he was trying to win that. So he withdrew half the money that he had left over, so about $50,000 in ones, so he could study $1 bills and see how the sequential stuff worked, so he could try to match up with the one that was on the radio. And whenever he went to a Christmas party, he came back and somebody had stolen $50,000 in $1 bills from his house.
Oh, man.
So that was in Christmas 1984, so only a few months after all this had happened.
I really admire this guy, Tony. He strikes me as someone that I could relate to. Just not, I don't want to say bored, but just not quite content to just do the acceptable thing.
Yeah.
Like, always pushing it a little bit. And
I mean, that's
obviously
like
very intelligent, too.
Yeah. It's like part of the reason why we're in this job is we pushed to basically not do the normal thing. And I know that feeling of discontentment from, like, the average job. So I can relate to this guy pretty well, and I'm very impressed with his ability to just go out there, not only to, like, memorize the patterns and the effort he put in, but to, like, actually get on the show and be able to implement it with the pressure of Hollywood and all the lights around him and all the people and everything else.
It's an awesome thing. And the bad idea here, I assume, is not making your show random enough.
Yeah,
so people
like
couldn't catch it.
That's definitely the bad idea here. It's Larson had a few bad ideas after winning. The mid-90s, he would try to sell a bunch of foreign lottery tickets and get involved in this scam. Whenever the SEC went and investigated him, he basically went into hiding and wasn't seen until his death in 1999 from throat cancer. But the real bad idea here was not making a game that was programmed well enough to beat its competitors, like not having an actual randomness to it. So that was the real bad idea.
And as we discussed at the beginning of the episode, it was a new problem.
Yeah.
For people, because before that you could not study a game show with that kind of rigor.
Yeah, you might have been able to, like, if you worked for the studio, you might have been able to, like, pull up old film or something like that. But I don't even think people would have really had access or the time or anything to do that.
Yeah, it was with the democratization of being able to like tape television and play it back and study that. If you have, millions of people with that technology, turns out one of them is going to be just crazy enough to try to figure out your pattern.
Yep. And I'm sure that if they had this game out today, knowing the internet and everything else, the exact same thing would happen if you didn't have enough randomization in it.
Oh, immediately.
Yeah.
Like the Reddit would have figured it out within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah. They'd go all like the Shia LaBeouf flag thing on it, and they would have just made it happen.
Yep.
But anyway, that's the story of Michael Larson and Press Your Luck. I think that's going to do it for this week. If you have bad ideas, we would love to hear them. Send them to badideashow@gmail.com or hit us up at Human Echoes on pretty much every social media platform.
Also, don't forget this show is brought to you by the awesome patrons that support us over at patreon.com/humanechoes. If you like the show enough, you could go over there and become a member of our patron family.
Also, if you become a patron, our new pin is out, and it is actually a Bad Ideas pin. So if you want a Bad Ideas pin, as well as all of the retroactive pins that we have, now is a perfect time to become a member.
Supplies are limited.
Yep. Catch you guys later.
Bye.